This is Jeff Mucci with RCR Wireless News, and we're here today with Brian Modoff, who's with Deutsche Bank. Thanks for joining us today. This morning's presentation at the Texas Wireless Summit, you talked about a 5G network. Can you talk about how you define that and when you think that'll actually evolve into being a real network?
Well, it actually isn't a standard yet, so we're trying to define what we think should be part of the standard. And what we talk in there about is the fact that as we've gone from 1G to 4G, most of the system capacity has come from the modulation scheme. We've flattened the network, made it improved the latency, done other things as well, but the modulation scheme has been the primary driver of aggregate system capacity. When we talk about in what we look at as 4.5 and 5G, is the modulation schemes are getting pretty efficient. In other words, they're approaching Shannon's limit in terms of efficiency. And so now we're looking at what are other things we can do to the network, and it's our view that it's the architecture of the network that becomes the main area for system capacity gains. You're talking about network densification through small cell architectures. You're talking about a lot more control plane elements involvement, things like X2 and MIMO and COMP and SONS. And then you're talking about after enabling a higher capacity to those two elements, actually moving up in frequency. So in 5G, we envision using 3.5 gigahertz, maybe 60 and 70 gigahertz frequencies to add incremental spectrum capacity to the network. Remember, when we get up into gigahertz, you can talk about gigabits of system capacity.
And you talked about gains, and you had a chart that showed 10x, 10x, 10x. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe paint a picture of what that really means, and what are some of the hurdles carriers are going to have to face to be able to implement those and achieve those kind of gains?
Yeah, what we were talking about there was, the carriers are talking about needing 1,000x more system capacity in the next decade. And what we talked about are these are the three elements we see that will help them get there. And obviously the highest gains will come from network densification. But without the control plane elements we talked about, you can't enable network densification. So they very much rely on each other. And then once you've densified the network, then you can go up into higher frequencies and bring that in. So if you were to look at it in system, you'd probably say about half of it comes from the network densification, and then another 30% of it comes from the control plane elements and the efficiency they enable, and the remainder comes from the higher frequencies.
Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Right. Any other key points you want to get across?
No, I
thought that slide was a great slide.
Thank you.